What's up, guys? It's TechnoViking23 coming to you today with some Raid Shadow Legends. Gonna be a little bit of a longer video today, so I hope you guys will stay tuned and watch a little bit of this, especially if you're someone out there looking for a little bit of help with the clan boss. What I wanted to do today was actually talk about the just traditional clan boss team, not the unkillable, no Maneater, no Demytha, because that's really all I'm seeing out there anymore these days, coming from a lot of raid content creators, is when you're going to do clan boss, just build the Demytha team, just build the Maneater team, do the unkillable for 50 turns. And quite honestly, not everybody has those champions. It can take you quite a while, as I'm sure some of you guys know, to acquire good Void Epics and good Void Legendaries in this game, especially if you're not spending an arm and a leg on Void Shards. So what we're going to do here today is kind of demonstrate how you can build a traditional clan boss team. And by traditional, I mean a team that doesn't really take use of the unkillable or the damage mitigation like the Maneater does, and just a team that's going to use a good synergy of buffs and debuffs and other abilities like poison and HP burn and things to go out there and get yourself a good key on the clan boss and try to move up to do the 1 key Nightmare and that 2 key Ultra Nightmare. I'm going to put up some screenshots here too of the teams I use in my free-to-play account. We're going to show a Nightmare 1 key from the team we use against Spirit, just to kind of show you guys how that team survives and does a good bit of damage. Later on in the video, we will get into some of the builds and some of the gear on some of these champions. We'll talk a little bit about the champion synergy there as well. I'm going to put up a screenshot here also of my Great Hall so you guys can see what we're working with there. I don't have the best Great Hall here on the free-to-play account. We're about 2 years, a little over 2 years into the game, so we've only got a couple of the nodes that are gold. And what I hope this kind of shows is that even with a Great Hall that's not amazing, as long as you're focusing in the right areas for statistics, you'll be able to build a pretty solid team that will take you to the next level, help you get that 2 key or even that 3 key on Ultra Nightmare if you're just moving up to it. You know, if you're in the mid game or moving into the later game trying to get up to get those better clan boss rewards, you can definitely do it even if you don't have a Demytha team or a Maneater. One of the reasons on my free-to-play account here that we still are using the traditional clan boss teams is because we have yet to pull a Seeker on this account for 2 years, and Seeker enables pretty much like 99% of all the unkillable teams. We have 1 Maneater, we have 2 Demythas on this account. We could probably make something work with the double Demytha and a Brogni possibly, but I don't really want to waste the resources or spend the silver on all that gear. You need very high gear requirements a lot of the times for your Demytha. So having a traditional clan boss team can help you save on spending silver, because most of the time you're not going to need the crazy gear that you need to hit the speeds on the unkillable teams. As you'll see when we get into the gear on this team here specifically, if I could talk, you'll see that most of them are wearing a lot of rare gear. It's just the basic lifesteal gear, and I'm going to talk about that as well, about how, you know, you can just use the traditional method of just having the champs in lifesteal and using that method there. Also, we'll talk a little bit about the Leech debuff and why I'm not a big fan of that, but we'll get into that a little bit later. What I'm going to do here now, we're going to go ahead and speed up to the end of the run. I did have the buff debuff window up a little bit ago to kind of show the point of having a good mix of the buffs on your own champions and having the debuffs on the clan boss. This is going to be about a 35 million key if I remember correctly, so we were able to 2 key the Ultra Nightmare pretty consistently on this account. The only one we have trouble with is Spirit a little bit, because I still have yet to build a couple of champions for that one. It's kind of an ongoing process when you are running a more traditional team. You're constantly looking for pieces to move in and out and better gear to try to improve your statistics and your damage, but I think we do pretty well on this account if you've been following along in the free-to-play series. So I felt like it was important to go ahead and get a video out there that you can still build a traditional clan boss team in 2022 in Raid Shadow Legends. You don't have to use Demytha or Maneater or the cookie cutter teams that everybody else is using. My teams are very simple. It's all about the gear and the champion synergies and their kits. We don't even have any of these teams speed tuned, which is kind of fun. I'll talk about that a little bit later as well. But let's go ahead and jump in. We'll get to the end of the run here real quick, show you the damage, and then we'll move on and take a look at the champions, the builds, talk a little bit about the masteries and the gear and other alternatives to champions that you could use to do better in clan boss without those unkillable teams. Alright guys, here we are in our champion roster. We're going to go ahead and take a look at some of the champions that you saw in the Clan Boss run. We're also going to talk a little bit about gear and builds and some of the concepts that I use in the non-unkillable teams that I have built here on the free-to-play account. And the first thing I do want to get out of the way right now is that my teams are not speed-tuned. I personally feel like if you're not trying to run some complicated composition or the unkillable teams, speed tuning is, in my opinion, a little bit overrated for building just a traditional clan boss team. You have other stats that you're going to want to prioritize for survivability before you really worry about speed. Now that doesn't mean you want your champions to be slow. You definitely want to be able to take a lot of turns and be faster than the clan boss. So for Ultra Nightmare, 190 is what you need to be over. So I try to be over that with most of the champions. Some of them may fall underneath that. For example, I have Skull Crusher a little bit on the slow side, so he's the last one to go. So he puts up that counter attack at the very end before everybody gets hit. You also want to aim for about 230-ish accuracy. You can get away with a little bit less, but if you want the consistency of landing your debuffs, you're going to want to try to hit that 230 number. So it's kind of nice. It's not like we're going for hard Doom Tower type stats. These are pretty realistically achievable stats, I think, for many of you, as long as you're getting into the mid game and toward the late game, and you still haven't been able to pull any of those unkillable champions. So as for the gear, I run all my teams in the traditional lifesteal setup. Everybody has lifesteal gear. I did try to do the Leech strategy. That's something I do see people try to talk about a lot of the times. For example, we have Grush the Mangler here. He's a free champion you get through login. You can see we have him built out in stalwart gear and some accuracy to land his debuffs. And just to take a look at him, he's at 3,400 defense, 51k HP. Normally this would be okay, but what I found is when you run a Leech champion, if you don't run a second dedicated healer in your comp, and you don't have good stalwart gear to put on basically everybody, the strategy is kind of use the Leech to heal off the clan boss damage that you're doing, but also have some mitigation for the AoEs, which is the stalwart gear. If you don't have that good stalwart gear and you don't have another dedicated healer, I found that Leech is actually not that effective, in my opinion, unless you're just running crazy damage gear and you're trying to get all your damage done in 20 turns before the damage starts to ramp up with the clan boss. It can work that way. That's definitely a viable strategy if you have the good enough gear to be able to put out a ton of damage. You're running, crit capped with 250 crit damage on your damage champions. For that, it's certainly viable. But what I found was it was much easier to build a team with lifesteal gear and have that survivability going beyond, well beyond turn 20, turn 30, in some cases up to in the 40s toward turn 50. So I personally am not a fan of the Leech strategy. I feel like it requires too much good gear depending on where you are in the game, and too much specific gear that you need. But it can be helpful if you have the gear and you have that dedicated healer champ you can put in to go with your Leech champion, and you have a very consistent Leech as well. It's certainly something you can try out, but I honestly, if I'm going a traditional clan boss build, I usually just stick with the tried and true 4-piece lifesteal, and then I try to fill in with whatever I need. Usually it's going to be perception, because you want to try to pick up that accuracy, and if you do need the speed, as I talked about earlier, to get above that 190 number, you can also get a little bit of extra speed from perception. It's one of the better sets in the game to use pretty much everywhere. But let me go ahead and show you guys kind of just a general build here. Like, for example, we have Rosin Scarhide here. We have him at 3,700 defense, 35,000 HP. Now the HP is a bit on the low end. I'd like this to be over 40, but if you're building for Ultra Nightmare, I've found that you are almost required to go above 3,500 defense if you want to have good survivability. So I try to build a champion between 3,500 and 4,000 defense if I'm going into Ultra Nightmare. I feel like anything above 4K is a little bit of overkill. So you can kind of go a little bit lower on the HP if you can get that high defense number. Rosin obviously also benefits because he is a defense champion. He does his damage based on his defense. And there's also some champion synergy involved here. Since we are running Martyr on this team specifically, we have her in the lead. She has a defense aura. We also get an increased defense buff. So that all benefits our defensive champions, which is why we have multiple defensive-based champions running in that team. So it's important to keep things like that in mind. You want to kind of have that synergy. If you have someone that's going to put up a decrease or an increased defense buff, try to have some defensive damage dealers that are going to benefit from that, because the clan boss can hit you with that decreased attack. You can lose a little bit of damage that way. But with this team, it works out well because, you know, we're not quite at that 4K defense number, but we're going to get those increased defense buff that's going to help us out quite a bit. Also help up our damage a little bit here. Now, Rosin is one of my damage dealers, so I do have him crit capped. I wish I could get the crit damage higher, but it's just the kind of gear that we have right now. We're not able to do that just yet on the free-to-play account. The accuracy needs to come up as well, but that's something that we're always going to be working on when we are looking for gear and going through the game. Now, one other thing I will tell you guys is it's incredibly important if you are not running an unkillable, you don't have those unkillable champs, is trying to find as much damage as you can in your gear. And the easiest way to do that right now in the game is to get these revenge accessories out of the clan shop. This is actually even on my main account where I have the unkillable. I still buy these all the time for everybody because these are incredibly valuable everywhere in the game. For example, here the stats on this aren't even that great for Rosin, and even if this was like an attack ring, I'd probably still put it on him just because having that counterattack chance is going to increase the damage to a point where it would be worth it just to have the gear on him. So you can see here on Lizardmen, we don't really have much in the way of the counterattack accessories. You're kind of subject to RNG when you buy these in the clan shop, but we do try to get these all the time, every week, buy at least a couple of these to see if we can get them onto our clan boss champions to try to increase the damage they're able to put out through that counterattack skill. That can also help you if you don't have any of the counterattack champions, like the ones we're using in this video. Counterattack is not required if you want to run a standard clan boss team, but it is very helpful. Let me go through Martyr here real quick. Now I know it might be tough to get Martyr since she is a legendary. We were pretty fortunate on this account to get her, but we'll take a look at her build. We don't have any counterattack accessories on her yet. I think I've got a couple here, but I hadn't gotten around to really rolling any of them up all the way to where we would want to stick them on her. And you can see in some cases like this, I wouldn't want to lose the 4,000 HP because the HP and the defense together is like your damage mitigation. So you want to have the good HP, but also the high defense. So you don't really want to take a massive hit in one of those two areas. So it is ideal if you do get these in a stat that's good for your champion that you're using. But right now I don't really have too many of these. That I might try to put that on her later if I can roll it up and see how it does. But you can see here with her stats, she's almost at 4K defense. Again, that's the number I try to hit, between 3,500, 4,000 defense if I'm running the traditional team. 53,000 HP is good enough there. She's a little fast at 207, but that's fine. We don't quite have her crit capped, but she's really not in there to do damage. She's in there mainly is an attack down roll, and also to hit the increased defense for our team. It gives us that nice buff. Plus she does have this really nice 33% all battles defense aura. Like I said, if you can't quite hit the stats with your gear, having an aura like this is incredibly helpful. Even someone like Bulwark as a rare champion can help you out even in Ultra Nightmare with that. So it's always good to have. But, you know, it's like you want to have that mix. You want to have a good mix of buffs going on your team and a good mix of debuffs going on to the clan boss. And that's also why I do run Aox together with Martyr, is because Aox is actually an attack down champion on his A3 here. So I like to have more than one attack down champion if I can get it in the team, because that way you're almost guaranteed to have that coverage. If one attack down's not up, maybe the other one is, and that's going to help, again, your survivability out quite a bit. And of course, Aox has got this one where he increases the duration of the random debuffs anytime that he gets hit. So if you can get something like that, Bulwark does something similar to this. It's really good to be able to get those debuffs extended on the clan boss. But we kind of look here at Aox's build. Again, we've got a counterattack accessory on him. Again, it rolled triple attack, which is awful, but, you know, we just wanted to have that revenge ring on him to get him a couple extra attacks, get a little bit more damage out of him. You saw him in Skull Crusher actually did a fairly good amount of damage in that one run we just did. But you can see here, we do have him crit capped, speed at 194. Now we're over at 4,200, so I have a little bit of leeway with his stats. If I wanted to come in and try to rebuild him at some point, I do have a little bit of room to play with here, especially since we have that, you know, the defense aura and the increased defense. But again, this just helps out your survivability so much if you can get these high defense numbers. And looking at the gear, you know, we've got rare gear on a lot of these champions. So again, this is why I say don't think this is not obtainable because of where your account is or where your gear is. You just got to do a little bit more farming in the dragon. You see we're using rare pieces here, even on this shield. And we're still able to do it because we have the good primary stats, like the defense percent, and then we got some HP percent in some of these. We are using crit rate gloves on him. I think I had him in defense percent gloves before, but we had way too much defense, so I went ahead and dropped it to try to help him do a little bit more damage. So that's kind of a look at some of the champions we used on that run. Obviously, we have Geomancer. He's one of the best epics in the game. He's not necessary for this, but he can put out quite a bit of damage with the HP burn and the damage reflection. So he's pretty solid there. Again, we've got him in this one counterattack accessory. I picked up a couple more this week. I'm going to try to get those on these champions a little bit more often. Same thing with him. We've got 4-piece lifesteal and some perception gear in there to help him hit his debuffs. Now, he's actually the one champion, because I used him in other areas of the game, I didn't get to build him the way I really wanted to. So he's way low on the defense. He's only at 2,700, but because we get the increased defense, because we get the defense aura, we're able to run him in that team because of this. Now, on the team I run against the Magic boss, I still use him on that one, even though the defense is low and we don't have Martyr in that team, and that's because I have, let's see if we can find her here. I have this as, you know what, let's take this off of most recent. It'll be a little bit easier. So we run Sepulchre Sentinel as our lead on that team. So she's also got the defense aura. It's only 25%. It's not quite 33%, but it's enough to help Geo survive a little bit longer, even when we use him against the Magic boss. Plus, he's strong affinity there, so that's another thing to keep in mind. And again, kind of the same concept here. Sepulchre Sentinel is another really solid clan boss champion. She's got the attack down on the A1. She's got a really solid kit overall for clan boss, and we have her built very similar. She's at 4,300 defense, 40,000 HP. So you can see kind of the theme here of where we want to be in that area for the HP and the defense. Her accuracy is a little bit high, but I do use her in other areas of the game where we need a little bit more. She's crit capped again. If you can get your champions crit capped, even the ones that aren't doing damage, like a Sepulchre Sentinel, any little bit of extra damage is certainly going to help your team. And again, if we had the counter, we have one here, it looks like we just got for accuracy, but we don't want to lose that much defense there, so we wouldn't be really interested in putting that on her just yet. But that's just kind of an idea. Like, you don't have to have the unkillable to be able to achieve good results on the clan boss. You can certainly build a team using just epics and rares. And we wanted to talk about some alternatives here, because I know you guys may not have all the champions that I showed in the clan boss run, but we have someone here like Anax, who I'm actually building out for clan boss. I'm working on his masteries right now. I don't really put a champion in until I have the masteries finished. He's a really good damage dealer for clan boss. You can see here we've already got him into the counterattack accessories, all 3 of them. And we're going to go through, and you look at his kit here, he's got decreased defense, he's got poison, he's got a weaken, and then he's got this passive here. So he gets the increased defense when his HP goes down, he gets the increased attack. So all kinds of cool stuff going on with him. This is the type of champion you really want to look at, especially for your damage champion. Someone that brings a decreased defense, someone that brings a weaken to the table, and someone that you can build out to still be a little bit tanky. And you want to have that poison. You want to have some type of damage over time, like the poison or the HP burn. So you're just trying to find a champion that's going to really help you with all of that. Like even someone like Frozen Banshee here, she's a very solid option for clan boss, and I still use her even on an Ultra Nightmare, even in a standard team. But you can look at my Frozen Banshee, even she has 4,000 defense. Her HP again could be a little bit higher, but it's because we have the defense up so high, she's able to survive quite a while and put out those poisons and get a bunch of damage. We actually use her against the Spirit clan boss still as our main poisoner and our main damage dealer there. I don't rely on poison as much in the other 2 teams because we have the Geomancer that we're using there. But if we weren't using Geomancer, we would actually be using another poisoner. That's one of the reasons we're building Anax as well, so we can have a little bit more effective team against the Force boss. And we're also building Cupidus, who's got some pretty good skills to use. In the clan boss here, we don't have Venus, unfortunately, but he can do HP burn, increase attack on himself. The HP burn as well there is really good. And if the target's got any debuffs, he's going to do extra damage on them. So Cupidus, if you have him, really great for Hydra, really great for clan boss. Kind of nice there. I know it's tough to get the legendary. You can see here we got our 2 Demythas here that we haven't built yet. And again, it's just the stat requirements and some of the stuff for building her. Yes, we do have it, but it would just be too much of an effort on this free-to-play account after we've already gone through and built these other teams. Venomage is pretty decent as well. Good poison option, lots of damage mitigation if you can get her going. That's actually, we are working on building her up too. I don't think I've done her masteries yet, but you can see we did book her out already. We're definitely going to bring Venomage in once we can get some gear to build up on her. But it's all kind of, like I said, the same sort of concepts. You've got the attack down from somebody like Aox or Sepulchre Sentinel. We've even got Dreg that we use on our Spirit team. And you can see how he's built out here. Again, 267 accuracy. We've got him at 4,300 defense. I'd like to get his HP actually up a little bit higher because he does bring the ally protection to the table. And that means he's going to be taking more damage. So you kind of do want the HP a little bit higher. But since we have that increased defense, we can actually put him in the lead because he does have the HP aura by 33% again in all battles. So it's just finding these champions, especially these epics that have the decent kit. He's got the decreased attack on the A1, so he's going to be hitting that quite often. He does the ally protection and the increased defense. Again, those buffs getting your survivability up. And then he's got this continuous heal passive whenever they take a big hit. That can be helpful against the clan boss, especially if somebody's taking that stun shot right there. But that's just kind of the general way I sort of go into building that. And I do masteries pretty much the same on most of my clan boss champions. Unless there's someone I want to go down the defense tree with counterattack, we usually go down to get War Master on a lot of these champions. And Skull Crusher now, I didn't take him down since he is taking a lot of damage. We got a little bit more damage mitigation with him there. Now, I used to use Aina quite a bit. You may remember from some of the earlier episodes of the free-to-play series. She was actually one of my first clan boss champions I built out. I haven't used her in a while. You can tell because she's missing the chest piece here, which was probably a defense % chest. But yeah, that's why her numbers are so low here. But one of the things I really like about Aina, and this is why I said, you know, just looking through what's on your account, trying to find those champions that might help you out with these certain things, is she's got an extra turn on her A1, which is nice to get a little bit extra damage. She does have a weaken on the A2, and then she has the decreased defense on the A3, which is pretty cool because she can actually serve as almost like a budget Rosin Scarhide. She's got the decreased defense and the weaken. It's just in two separate abilities, but that can be very helpful, especially if you're in the mid game and you're trying to make that jump from Nightmare into Ultra Nightmare. Again, it's going to be all about trying to get those statistics. You know, get that defense as close as you can to 3,500, 4,000, get the HP up there, and then start building for everything else, you know, with your accuracy and your speed and all that other stuff there. So there's a lot of good alternatives, a lot of good champions you can use for that. I think you guys are probably smart enough to figure out that on your own. Like I said, you really want to make sure you've got that attack down. You know, get your HP up, get your defense up, have those buffs for the increased defense, increase attack. Now, if you're running somebody with increased attack, then you want to be running attack-based champions in your team. That's something to consider. Again, like I mentioned, the synergy. If you're running someone with defense up and a defense aura, bring in those defense damage dealers because they're going to benefit a lot more from that than an attack champion would. And that's why we use someone like Rosin here, who, again, is a pretty, I don't want to say easy to get because some of the rares can take forever to get for him, but he's accessible and he's usable even at the end game in Ultra Nightmare if you need that damage dealer option. And again, you know, we just got him in the standard lifesteal accuracy build there. So that's just kind of some of the concepts you want to look for. And I almost wanted to rant about this a little bit, but let me just, I'll try to be a little bit more nice here. Let me find my, God, I'm missing my champions. Where are they? Reinforce. Why can I not find my Skull Crusher? Oh, because he's got a blessing on it. Actually, let's talk about that first, too. That's one other concept that I didn't want to really talk about too much here because we're thinking more mid-game for these types of builds and getting into the Ultra Nightmare Clan Boss to get that 2 and 3 key. But if you are lucky enough to have benefited from the blessing system, you definitely want to use some of those against the Clan Boss. You can see here we've got Skull Crusher and Cruelty. We only have a 1-star on him, but we get that decreased defense. It's a little bit nice to have that coming in. You can put the another blessing here. Phantom Touch is kind of nice because you can do bonus damage. If you're lucky enough to get a legendary, you can do the Brimstone. But there's a lot of different ways you can kind of build the champions here. You can see we have Whisper here. We have her in Phantom Touch. I'm still working on her. I got to get her masteries done before I bring her in as a DPS for Clan Boss, but she's another very solid option, especially being Void. But I want to talk about Skull Crusher for a minute because I feel like this guy gets a lot of hate now. It's very weird. I see a lot of content creators like just straight up disregard him and say like, you know, if you pull him, he's trash now. You don't need him. He's overrated. He's power crept. He's dated. And they always follow that up by saying it's so easy to build a Demytha comp now. It's so easy to build a Maneater comp now. It's so easy to build the unkillable comps, the block damage comps. And I'm sitting here thinking, you know what? It took me on this account almost 2 years to pull an unkillable champion. in the Demytha. I know some people it's taken them longer than that to even pull their first Maneater. So I'd be willing to bet the majority of people do not have, number one, the single or the double Maneater, the single Demytha. In this case, on this account too, we're still missing Seeker, and this account's 2 years old. So Skullcrusher is still incredibly valuable. Don't listen to any of that stuff. I think it's nonsense. I think he's still a great champion, especially for Clan Boss. He brings a lot to the table, especially if you want to use him as a stun target, since he does cleanse his own. He decreases the duration of the debuffs by 1 turn at the start of every turn, so he kind of gets rid of that stun by himself, which is kind of nice. And just in general, he's got a really good kit. Now, you don't want his heal reduction hitting if you can avoid it, but he's got the ally protection, he puts the counterattack on everybody, and he puts the unkillable up on himself. So very solid champion still for what he brings to the table. And again, being defense-based, he's pretty easy to build to survive for quite a while. And I think if you've got him on your team and you're not trying to run the unkillable team, you definitely got to take advantage of Skullcrusher, because he's got a really good kit for Clan Boss, and it can help you survive quite a bit longer. So I definitely don't like the trend I'm seeing from a lot of content creators where they talk about, you know, this champion is not good anymore, there's much better options, you can just make the unkillable team, because I think, as a lot of us know, that's not the reality for most people's accounts. You know, content creators, they get perks from Plarium, they're getting all kinds of shards, they're spending money, they do shard pull videos every single weekend. Every big event, they're dropping money to buy shards to pull for videos. So they're going to have more champions than us. You know, I did the spending video on my main account to show how much I'd spend on that account. And even there, I don't have a ton of champions, even though I used to buy a lot of shards. It still took me a while to get my 2 Maneaters there to build my unkillable team. So again, point of this video just to show you, you can do it even without the unkillable team. I know this is the age of the Demytha comp and everybody, that's all they talk about now, but I wanted to put this video out because I still think it's important, if you're coming up through the game, to realize that you can still get a 2-key Ultra Nightmare team, you know, even with gear that's not amazing, and even just using some epic champions that have really good kits. You know, you want to look for the champion synergy, you know, getting as much out of each kit as you can for the debuffs and the buffs. And you can definitely build successful Clan Boss teams without Demytha or without Maneater. And actually, I think it's kind of more fun to build a team like this, because when you get that accomplishment, you get that 2-key Ultra Nightmare. It feels really good that you did it without having to do that unkillable team, and you did it, you know, working hard, farming for the gear, building your champions up, and constantly improving them. That's the other thing. We're constantly looking to improve, get better gear, and get those numbers continually up and more consistent. So I think I've rambled on long enough about this, but like I said, I just wanted to make a video to show that even in this day and age, you can still build a good traditional Clan Boss team. I think it's a lost art. Many content creators don't really worry about it too much anymore. They're moving on to other things in the game. They don't really focus on Clan Boss anymore, because they've got their unkillable team. They hit auto and they just do it. But it's still important to have that ability to build that team and kind of know what to look for in the stats and abilities that you want. So as always, guys, if you have any questions about anything in the video, feel free to leave it down below. I'll do my best to get you an answer as soon as I can. As always, hope you guys are having a great day. Thanks as always for watching, and I will see you again next time.